This is NBA Unplugged, brought to you by theprobasketballtalk.com. It's time to talk hoops with Jacob Noble and James Buckland.
Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to another very special edition of NBA Unplugged, brought to you by theprobasketballtalk.com, and this is an interesting edition. Tonight we're calling it Beers and Rankings. My name is James Buckland, and with me as always is the other co-host of NBA Unplugged, Jake Noble.
Yeah, you know, the show that's topping the charts in the PBT world. The Bozos of basketball don't have a chance. A little shout out to Ben, but no, we're actually filming this location from inside of a liquor store.
Filming, are we? We have cameras? I didn't realize. Well, actually,
we do have cameras. So we are filming the store, but we're actually inside of a store doing this podcast.
Yes, this is
weird.
Super Discount Liquors in Stoughton we're broadcasting from.
Yep.
And we are sampling beers as we give you the rankings of our 1 to 30 best teams in the NBA going into the season. Jacob, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about this first beer that we're sampling here?
Oh, this first beer is a Vermont brew. It's Long Trail. This is the Brewmaster Series. It's a double IPA, 8.6% alcohol content, and it has 86 IBUs for your hop nerds out there. If you don't know what IBUs are, it's kind of the ranking of
go to a beer class.
Yeah, go to a beer class. It's basically how many hops you put into the beer, but it's a little fantastic taste, and we'll see how many beers we get through before the pod ends.
I like it.
But yeah, so we decided to rank our players, which is kind of interesting because...
Teams.
You're right. We're here to rank teams. It's interesting because we were doing the season previews, and now that we're here, I kind of wish we thought this all through a little better and kind of posted them as we thought they were ranked. So, like, the Bobcats can lead off the season. Is that what we would talk about? You know, on that October 1st day, the Bobcats would be...
Right.
Preview.
I suppose on the site we could have had posts up in the order of where we ranked them, but there are not. Our ranking lists are not identical. They're pretty close, as they probably should be. Talent sort of is in the numbers and will be the proof in the pudding once the season starts. But there are a couple differences that we can talk about where we strayed on each other's lists here.
Yeah, and then to me the interesting part is we have kind of brackets that we have these teams in, and they sit in these brackets, and they can fluctuate. So our number 24 team could end up being 22 and 33, which we see happening. You know, if we predicted this perfectly, I mean, we wouldn't be talking to you guys. We'd be making money.
Exactly. We wouldn't be on NBA Unplugged on the Pro Basketball Talk. We might be somewhere else. No offense to what we do here.
Oh no, we might be Genesis.
Yeah. Well, we would still be doing this podcast, but probably more people would listen, and we might make a little dough on the side.
Yeah, that's what we're here for, to make a little dough on the side. But
I
guess without further ado, we should hop into the bottom 6 teams in the league that no one's really talking about. And
the crap bracket.
The crap bracket. We'll call it that. I like that. We'll start that in there. That's going on in the post. Because just so you know, we're not recording this live again. We're going to just, fix our mistakes and give you a great finalized product, and hopefully next week we'll be able to...
smooth.
Hopefully next week we'll get our guests back. But we're going to stay here and have fun, and now we got a crappy bracket. And
these teams, they're not going to be making any noise in the playoffs, most likely.
They won't be in the playoffs.
Unless there's some surprise teams that, grab an 8th seed or something like that. Right now, though, we're looking at the bottom of the barrel, and the bottom of the bottom, I believe we agreed would be the Bobcats at 30 and then Magic at 29.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. You might hear some Bobcats fans trying to justify Orlando getting the 30th spot. Look, and obviously you're going to have the Orlando fans saying, hell no, we won't go. Bobcats, you're the worst team in the league.
Right,
so.
We only lost Dwight Howard.
That's it.
Yeah, we still have Hayda Turkoglu.
But hey, I mean, the Bobcats don't have a Dwight Howard to lose, so...
That's true, and if you hear any long pauses like that, it's because Jacob and I didn't synchronize our sips correctly.
Nope.
But you look at the Bobcats roster, and you got the upside of Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. You're looking at a couple other young guys like Bismack Biyombo, Gerald
Henderson, love saying that name.
Bismack Biyombo is one of my favorites, and but that doesn't mean he's a great player, and doesn't mean he's gonna bring the Bobcats to the next level.
No, but I mean Orlando's got talent too. But they just don't have any stars. They got a lot of role players.
Right, they can end up surprising us here, and we might not have them at 29 by the end of the season.
No, I mean, they could jump up to the second bracket, which we'll get to. But
there's some talented players there. Like I said, Turkoglu, Glenn Davis had a big year last year. Aaron Aflalo is a nice addition. People are really high on him. Maybe a little higher than I am.
What's interesting is, like, Josh McRoberts might not make this team. Quentin Richardson might not make this team. They got to make some moves. I mean, they got a ton of guys on their roster because of the trade. I mean, they basically acquired 9 players for one. So, they got decisions to make. Do they keep the kids and then the young guys?
Well, there's a few of the young guys you have to keep. You look at the point guard position is a little shallow behind Jameer Nelson.
Yep.
You've got E'Twaun Moore that we saw play for the Celtics last year. You have Ishmael Smith, who we had on this show a few weeks ago, and he's excited about the team, but probably more than I am. But Ish Smith as your backup, you're not doing too bad there, but you can't afford to lose a guard. They're really thin at the point guard position.
No, they really are. I mean, J.J. Redick has to become the best shooter in the entire NBA world, but
he already believes he is the greatest shooter on the earth.
No, I mean, he might be, but Orlando's got some things to do. They got to figure out their identity before they, really win some games.
When you look at this bracket, even though we have them all the way down at 29, this crap bracket, I think they may be the team that actually would surprise us the most and jump up here.
You know what? I'm about to disagree with you because we got to jump up a couple more teams, and you got the Detroit Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers at 28 and 27 respectively, and I mean, everyone's talking about Kyrie Irving like he can be an MVP type candidate. He could be a Derrick Rose. He can be, the next tier point guard that jumps up in the Chris Paul and Darren Williams discussions. I haven't seen it yet. I mean, this is his second year. He's got tremendous talent, and it's really going to come to, it's up to him.
Tremendously talented indeed. There are some people who I agree with you are jumping off the handle a little too fast. He is just a fantastic ball player. There's not really many areas where he has a weakness. But there are people out there who are saying today, he is the best point guard in the NBA. He's better than Chris Paul already.
It makes me want to smack people.
That's a little radical if you ask me, but I understand where the excitement's coming from.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he can score, he can pass. He had a lot of assists on a crappy team. And I mean, they are in the crap bracket.
Yeah, and they belong.
Yeah, it's exactly where they belong. He doesn't have any, talent around him. He's got to do it all.
Who's the scorer that he's going to dish to? Tristan Thompson, hopefully they see improvements from him this year. Varejao, not much of a scorer.
I mean, they got a couple of shooters.
Alonzo Gee's never really proven it.
I mean,
DJ Miles, I think probably if you look at this roster, him and Waiters, the rookie, probably have the biggest opportunity to
probably
break out.
the most, the biggest head scratcher on draft night was Dion Waiters. And
right. He better
be something. He better be that two guard that Cleveland needs next to Kyrie, someone who can take a little bit of pressure off.
Especially when you look at some of the guys who they could have had.
Oh, absolutely. But we'll talk about those guys because there are some teams that happen to be a little bit better. But let's hop right back down to the 28 real quick for a couple seconds. And this Detroit Pistons, they're interesting because if they are as dominant as they can be in the paint, I think they are going to surprise people, and that would give them a contention to get out of this crappy bracket.
Yeah, and you know that I've in the past been very low on the Detroit Pistons. I have to be very honest with you. They are coming close to turning me into a Pistons fan with some of the moves they've been making. Mm-hmm. You have Brandon Knight, I think, at the point guard, who either him or Rodney Stuckey. They're kind of like a throwback.
I like Stuckey
1 and 2 guard. They're just the guards. They're kind of like an old school team like that.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just the guards. And then Greg Monroe obviously had a huge year last year. I think they might be starting Jonas Jerebko and Tayshaun Prince out there. I think they should just throw the kid under a Drummond out there at power forward and let him go loose.
You know what?
I see him as a bit of a Josh Smith type. He's just going to be all over the place with highlights.
You know what? Honestly, if I was running this roster, because there is no true small... I mean, it's disrespectful to Tayshaun Prince, but let's be honest. What is he really doing? Throw him on the bench. And you're the Detroit Pistons. You're trying to get these young guys.
But he's the captain.
But I know, this is what's tough, because I would say just throw Jonas at the 3 and run.
I like Corey Maggette there, but...
Oh, we know your Corey Maggette stories. But hey, I mean, Austin Day might want to play some minutes, I guess. I don't know.
Not if you ask Need for Sheed,
the
woman
Natalie,
we had on the show.
Natalie would not approve of us talking about Austin Day right now.
Very low on Austin Day. I didn't understand that.
Well, he's Austin Day, so... But let's hop back up to a couple of teams out west that are kind of interesting. You got the Phoenix Suns at 25, and you got the Sacramento Kings at 26. Now, again, we're at these rosters where, and this is why I love the NBA, because we can look at the crappy bracket and find optimism in it.
Yeah, and still be excited about these teams. They're not going to win a whole ton of games. But look, you got a lot of talented guys on that Phoenix Sun roster. You brought in Louis Scola, and you didn't have to give up much to get him.
And you got Goran back.
And Goran's back, ready to lead the team. We always thought when he was playing behind Steve Nash, he would be the heir apparent. It appears that he is now. Just took a little stop off in Houston on the way.
Hey.
Morchin Gartad has had a huge year before. Mm-hmm. Michael Beasley has the potential, if he can get his head on straight, to really put up big numbers. He, I think, is going to be my fantasy steal this year, but I'll leave that
Beasley?
alone.
You think he's going 25 and 8?
Well, I don't know about that much.
22 and 8?
I could see him possibly ending up with like a 20 and 8 with
kind
2
of season.
assists and steal.
Yeah, he's going to get a lot of playing time. I mean, unless Jermaine O'Neal has something to say about that, he might want to fight for that playing time.
I don't think
no,
he does.
that's a clear joke. We hate Jermaine O'Neal here, but the
I hope he doesn't listen to the pod. Just turn off the only NBA player.
No, I don't deal with people who go out because of thumb injuries. You play through the playoffs, especially if you're not a ball handler. No excuses. But the team that I am kind of optimistic about is the Sacramento Kings, and I'm writing a post right now about the season awards, but I'm doing it differently because everyone's doing who's going to win the season awards. I'm saying, what is the one player that is not really being talked about that could win this award? Most likely won't, but will be in the discussion. So I'm throwing out those oddball names out there, and the Sacramento Kings have 2 names to me out there. They have the Sixth Man of the Year, and Marcus Thornton, and they have a Rookie of the Year candidate in Thomas Robinson. So
okay, yeah, I think Marcus Thornton probably ends up starting for most of the year, but it's up
well,
in the
if they do Isaiah and they do Tyreek at the 2.
Yeah, I've seen some places do Tyreek at the 3, but if he's the 2, yeah, Marcus Thornton comes off the bench and really starts tearing it. Aaron Brooks, what about him? Spends the year in China. It's not like he wasn't super talented before.
Something happened after that trade with Houston, though. He went to, I believe it was Phoenix right after that, and then during the lockout he jumped overseas and he went back to Phoenix for a little while. And then
in Houston he was electric.
Yeah, I mean he was a stud down there. I was living down there at the time. He was the reason I was going to games because Yao Ming wasn't playing. He was the reason I was showing up. But I mean the Kings got some talent there. They got some young guys that are just gonna have to wait and see. Does Tyreek finally make that hurdle, become a voice to be reckoned with, a guy who they were hoping for? Does Boogie Cousins, make that next leap to become a top tier big man in the league? These are the questions we just don't know. But I'm very high on Thomas Robinson.
Yeah, talent wise, I'm high on the Kings every year. I always think that somehow they're gonna make it and make the playoffs.
I think it's those old C Webbs days.
Yeah, and I probably still am just in love with the team from then. But to me, they're young from top to bottom.
Yep.
And it's going to be tough for them to win a whole ton of games this year.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it really is.
And that's why they're in the crap bracket.
Exactly. I mean, plus they don't really have the coaching staff and everything. I mean, Keith Smart did okay last year to actually get Cousins to play along with them, but it is what it is. But now we have to go into the next bracket, and this bracket is interesting because there are some teams in this bracket who people are predicting to make the playoffs, but you and I got them in the 20 to 24 range. I mean, that's just madness. What do we call this bracket?
This bracket it is the hopeful bracket. I think that's correct.
I mean, there are hopeful things happen for them.
The first team I see here is the Blazers. And I think the only reason that I rank them this high is because LaMarcus Aldridge is just a tremendous player.
Absolutely.
And I think he should be an all-star candidate every single year.
He was the year he got robbed by
He's that damn good. I think he's a 2010 guy, and there just isn't a ton of talent around. Batum, people are saying he's going to have a big year. That may be so. Wesley Matthews, obviously. And I like their rookie, that point guard. What the hell is his name? You know what I'm talking about.
I do know who you're talking about.
I hate when I have a name on the tip of my tongue and it won't.
Yeah, I'm so used to
Lillard.
Damian
Lillard. Yeah, he's been impressing in the preseason. I saw him the other night, had about 20 points and 8 assists. So
he's playing well.
Yeah, if he gets a lot of minutes, I think he can produce. But teams with rookie point guards are going to struggle.
Yeah,
unless you're
absolutely.
the Celtics.
But
with Rajon Rondo.
To me, watching the Portland Trailblazers play, especially with the evolution of LaMarcus Aldridge down there, they kind of play him the same way the Pacers play with Hibbert. They don't truly need a point guard. They kind of dump the ball in down low, and he commands double teams. And Aldridge passes very well out of double teams, and he creates plays for his teammates. That's a rare thing to have in this league. Paul Gasol is probably the best doing it right now. LeBron's been doing it last year a little bit. You got Al Jefferson out in Utah, but he's always on crappy teams to realize he's doing it. And we saw LaMarcus for a little while, especially after they lost Roy, they lost Odin. He was basically, that was all that was there.
Yep. So Blazers go into that hopeful bracket just because they have LaMarcus Aldridge.
So
really in my mind. They have no depth at all. Rockets with Lynn.
It was a complete overhaul, and I understand the Lynn move because to me it was more of a marketing and financial reasons. I don't think it was a basketball-related decision to give him that kind of money and that kind of contract. But they're still the Rockets. They still coached well. McHale's on there. He coaches decently. At least to get his players ready. But they lost a lot of talent. You lose Yao. You trade Kyle Lowry, you let Goran Lee, you Anthony Stola. I don't really understand what they were doing. I mean, it was a confusing season for me this year, but
but the hopeful part is Ashik, who some folks believe is a legitimate starting center. I think he's making a lot more money than he's worth, but so be it. If Royce White comes out and has a huge rookie season, and Kevin Martin can score. So this is a team I think that can end up in hopeful, not in that bottom bracket. But I think this is probably the team in the hopeful bracket that I can see completely falling off. Them and the one that we have ranked right above them.
Oh, absolutely. Both of those teams can actually completely fall off. But I will say, a little optimism for the Houston Rockets. They got a lot of people who have a lot to prove. Kevin Martin needs to prove that he's a top tier scorer. Jeremy Lin's got to prove that he's an NBA talented point guard. I mean, we saw him play for 20-something games that were all blew up. Let's see what he can do in a full season with tape on him, with scouting reports on him. Royce White's got his personal issues he's got to deal with the team, but he's such a talented player. And then obviously they got Dantas Montejunas coming overseas finally, so he's going to get out there and
Dantas Montejunas.
Let's see what happens with the Rockets. I know they're pretty optimistic down there, but this is the hopeful bracket, not the optimistic bracket.
That's where they belong then. Hornets is, of course, the team right above that we were talking about. I could also see dropping off, and just because a lot of their talent's so darn young.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Anthony Davis, I think, is going to have a stellar year. Eric Gordon obviously is a very talented player, but now we've just learned that Stephen Curry. I'm sorry, he plays like Stephen Curry. His name's Austin Rivers. Has gone down with an injury, so they may not see him for a little while. But he was in a lot of pain.
The interesting with this team is, and I know some people aren't too high on my guy Al-Farouq Aminu. They're not ranking him very high. They don't think he's a quality small forward. He's a big body though, and he played very, very well at the Olympics. But they do have some bigs that are in audition. So not only do they have Anthony Davis, a draft pick, they also picked up Robin Lopez. They got
a big double-double in last night's preseason.
I love the inside-outside possibilities of Ryan Anderson kind of scoping the three-point line, and you're going to have Anthony Davis and Brook Lopez, the better defender player, Robin Lopez, playing down low. He gets more rebounds, he blocks, and that's what it is. But Eric Gordon's health and Ryan Anderson.
Now Austin Rivers' health, too.
Yeah, but I'm not expecting much from Austin Rivers, to be honest with you. I think Grievous Vasquez can do a decent job as being a point guard. He's a role player.
Passer.
The issues you hear about Austin are related to ego and people think
he's certainly got a lot to learn and add to his game.
Yeah. So that's why I'm not expecting much. As you pointed out earlier, you don't expect much from a rookie point guard. So if he is a point guard, we don't even know if he is.
Exactly, and that's why this team has the potential to flop. But Anthony Davis is just going to be a stud, and everybody knows it. That's why he was the number 1 overall pick.
Yep.
Maybe that translates into something serious.
And at number 21, we have the Bucks, and at 20, we have the Raptors. I kind of want to put these two teams in the same discussion because they both have the talent. They don't have any leaders.
Although, with the Bucks, Monte Ellis has turned over a new leaf, supposedly.
But we'll see what he can do.
Since having a son, he's sort of changed his outlook on things.
Yeah, but he wasn't a bad person. What I mean by leadership is the ability to cover both ends of the floor and lead by example.
Mm.
I mean, how is he going to lead by example? By scoring 50 points.
Well, maybe everybody on the team will score 50 points. And
I hope so.
I
hope so. I mean, for Brandon Jennings' sake, he might break the assist record if that's the case. But to me, they got a lot of veteran guys. They picked up Marcus Daniels. They got Sam Dallenberg. Ersan Ilyasova is expected to have a huge year. He's always been one of those tweener Euros that hasn't really found a niche in the league. But
I just hope that he doesn't get a suspension from all the flopping he'll be doing.
That's true. He's in the flop boat. They got Akipe Udo and Bino Udrih. And they got Bino Udrih. So, they got a lot of veteran talent on the Milwaukee Bucks. And
they were able to replace Andrew Bogut's interior defense with... I thought that was probably where they were going to hurt the most. Before the offseason this year, really, all they had for bigs was Drew Gooden, and that's never really where you want to be. The addition of Sam Dallenberg is big for them, and the addition of Joel Prisbilla as well, I think people are sleeping on.
Oh, absolutely.
He's a fantastic interior defender. If he can stay healthy, that's why the Milwaukee Bucks probably won't. They're not going to make the playoffs, but I think they won't be as terrible as some of the other teams that we've talked about here tonight.
So to me, they don't have enough stars, and it's funny to say that with a team with Monte Ellis on it, but he's still that B-tier star, that Andre Iguodala star. He's still in that category, in my opinion, because he's not a complete player. But looking back, we didn't mention this one player. They drafted John Henson, who 6'11", long as hell, can block shots out the gym. Skinny frame, needs to build up that bulk if he wants to be an interior defender. But he, as you pointed out, that's what they replaced Andrew Bogut's defense with, and obviously they got the offense with Monta Ellis, and they're going to run more guard games. Yeah. So let's talk about those Raptors, because those Raptors are interesting.
Yeah.
The Raptors have a ton of talent.
Our boy, who we saw that film about Lithuanian basketball.
Yep.
My name is Jonas. He's probably primed for a big year. You know, I love Andrea Bargnani. I think he absolutely explodes this year and reaches that next level of star. And then you look at who they got running the show now. Those two guys, Kyle Lowry and Jose Calderon. I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those guys get traded, most likely Calderon, at some point this year to bring in some more talent.
Yeah.
But, the point guard play is going to be strong. DeMar DeRozan is a legitimate scorer as well as Leonard Plaza. They've got talent on this team enough to maybe grab an 8th spot in the East. I still don't want to put them into the next bracket we'll talk about, but I think they belong in the hopeful bracket, as I don't see them as a surefire playoff team just yet.
As we pointed out before we started this whole segment, is that we expect these teams to move up or down from where we picked. We kind of just picked the mean, if everything is even Stevens, this is what's going to happen in our opinions. So they could overachieve, and that's really going to depend on the development of their players. So I agree with you. I don't have them in the playoffs. They have just such a tough division with the Celtics, Nets, Knicks, and Sixers. 4 teams who we are locking in for the playoffs. 4 teams who are just going to, take each other out and give Miami an easy route.
Who we haven't mentioned yet, which means that the Toronto Raptors are the worst team in the division.
But it's like saying you're the worst of the best. So
fair enough.
Hooray for the Raptors for that, and they might make the playoffs. I hope they prove us wrong. That'd be fun for Toronto and I want to say state of Canada, but it's actually the country of Canada.
It's the whole country. It's actually got the biggest shoreline on the planet.
That's insane. That's just too much land. Too much land up there. Too bad it's so cold. But yeah, so what would this next bracket be? Because there's like one playoff team in this bracket. Who are they? Like, what goes down with this one? I mean, we got 16. Well, we'll count up. 19, the Golden State Warriors, who the PBT had a nice email chain about today. At 18, we got the Washington Wizards, who've kind of revamped their roster. At 17, we got Utah Jazz, who made a couple trades. Got Marvin Williams, we'll talk about in a sec. And then, of course, everyone's favorite Binky, the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, well, now the Wolves, we had them at 16. I think after all the news that's come out surrounding that team, they're probably going to get a quick bump down because they're not going to get off to a great start. You're calling them the sexy bracket?
What do you call them? You got something better
than
that?
I would probably call them the one injury away bracket.
One injury away. I like
and the Wolves have already hit that. You've seen Kevin Love go down, and you're still not going to have Rubio for a couple months.
I don't know if we talked about that, but didn't I smell something fishy with that story when I was like, wait a minute. He hurt his arm sleeping, so he's out again. Wait a minute, he's going to get surgery on his hand. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Well, now we know. Knuckle push-ups will break your knuckles if you don't know how to do knuckle push-ups. Leave that to Kevin Garnett and Rajon Rondo. Let them do the knuckle push-ups. They can do it. Kevin Love, stop doing knuckle push-ups.
Yeah, that didn't work out for him, and it's not going to work out for the Wolves this year. I would actually probably bump them down to the hopeful bracket now that I know that Kevin Love is out for that expansive amount of time.
4 to 8 weeks.
Which is a legitimate amount of time when you're a team who's going to have to be competitive all throughout the season if you're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And you also don't have Ricky Rubio for a large portion of the beginning of the season.
2 months?
Yeah, about that, I believe, is the last that I had heard.
The NBA's robbed of him and Avery Bradley, which we'll get to that injury later. I just got to let the listeners know that we're just making up these bracket names off the top of our head. We discussed the rankings together. We kind of fine-tuned, had a couple disagreements. But as for brackets, we've just said, hey, how long do we want to talk about these
which is
teams?
why we had 2 different ones for that.
Yeah. I mean, we're just coming up with names on top of our heads. It's all in the beer tasting today.
Yeah, and I call it the one injury away bracket because if you take any one of these teams, you look at the Warriors, if they lost Stephen Curry or Andrew Bogut, they're probably going to be crap. You look at the Wizards, they lose John Wall. That's it. Well, actually, the Wizards might not be one injury away because those 2 bigs, I'm very excited about those. They're both on my fantasy team.
They're both? Yeah. That might be bad. You might have to get rid of one.
Well,
because it doesn't really work for... I mean, the whole team thing... Well, this isn't fantasy pod, but to me, the whole teammate thing of fantasy, I try to avoid. And
I like it. If one guy has a down out, the other guy probably has a big one.
True, but don't you want 2 guys that
rebounding-wise?
So we're here to talk about the Wizards, but they are a very, very, as I call
them maybe not one injury away. The Jazz definitely, if you lose Al Jefferson, that's it.
But, I mean, they can't lose John Wall. I mean... John Wall is supposed to be that guy for them. And, yeah, I can see your point where they have enough talent where they'll still be in that one injury away, but wouldn't that be that one injury?
Yeah, and they still probably wouldn't make the playoffs without John Wall.
Nah, I mean...
They have, if you're talking about backups here,
AJ Price or
I don't trust Jordan Crawford to be handling the ball for any large amount of time without putting up 50 shots per game. So, yeah, maybe they do stay in that one injury away category.
And I think the team that has been in this, if we were doing this for 10 years, we'll just say, if there was one team that was in this one injury away bracket for that 10 years, it had to be the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah.
I mean, the Golden State Warriors always are one injury away.
And it usually happens.
And it always happens.
Yeah.
And now you got I call them the freak injury because I don't think any of Bogut's injuries are truly like, he's got a weak knee, he keeps breaking it by walking up the court. No, he dunked, held on a little long, fell on his arm.
Yeah.
Like, that was a big injury last year. Then previous injuries are just like weird, freaky injuries. They weren't...
Yeah. Maybe the change of scenery will lift some sort of curse and he can stay healthy all year. I think if he does, you look at this Golden State Warriors team, and I think they could really make some noise. It's too bad that the West is so deep in talent, because I think that they could really make some noise.
Yeah.
If you have this type of talent in the East. You look at a guy like David Lee, who's good for 2010 at any possible
time. Carl Landry is who I like off the bench.
I've always been a Carl Landry. He's always been a great bench guy, and then you've got a glut at your wing players. I think Draymond could possibly play the three. I would think.
And it's funny because
but then you've got Harrison Bard, Richard Jefferson, and Klay Thompson, who's about to explode. Did you see that the poll of GMs?
Yes. Well, I'm going to get into this.
Okay.
Because
please.
To me, the Golden State Warriors have it's the biggest risk reward, if you would to call it that, with Barnes and Klay Thompson. They're both young players. They both are talented as hell. It's really going to be what can they actually do, and this is actually going to fall on our guy, Mark Jackson. He's got to figure a way to get these guys to put them in positions where they can succeed at what they do. They're both talented. Now you got the defensive question on both. I mean, Harrison Barnes did play 4 years in college, so he's more polished defender than most coming out of the draft. But he's still a young defender in the NBA. And is he? He fell in the draft for a reason, maybe. There's a reason why general managers didn't jump up at him.
But a lot of times those guys will surprise all those GMs as well, as we've seen in the past.
They drafted 2 4-year college players, and to me that's a mindset of a winning team. Teams that are winning late in the draft those 4-year college players.
It seems that they have made a commitment to wanting to win. That Mark Jackson keeps saying every year, I want to make this a defensive team. Yep. Well, actually, before Mark Jackson's time, they were still doing that, and it never worked out because they didn't have the personnel. Now they're still kind of on that edge. But you can see that they're committed to trying to win. They bring in a guy like Andrew Bogut, a former #1 overall pick, guy who can anchor your defensive end, and a very talented player.
And
Klay Thompson is a guy who they felt comfortable enough about his development. They think he's going to be that good that they were able to trade Monte Ellis and feel okay about it.
Yeah. People are big fans of Klay Thompson, and I see him blowing up on all the people's
GM's
articles.
Ranked him #1 guy who might break out.
Yeah, everyone's going for that. So we'll see what the young kid can do. He's 22 years old. He still has to prove it consistently in the NBA.
But they're pretty strong at every position if you look at this team. So I would probably pick the Warriors as my top sexy team. I believe we ranked them as the top. No, I guess we didn't, did we?
Nah. Well, you just changed your opinion.
Well, now, I would probably pick them as my...
But they have what I like to call a healthy competition. You got depth everywhere. Everyone's fighting for positions.
Is great. Yeah.
I mean, Bogut and Biedrins are going to fight. I mean, obviously Biedrins was the start.
Jack and Curry, Rush and Thompson, Landry and Lee, Barnes and Richard Jefferson.
They're all fighting for the spots. And it must be a fun camp, and hopefully Mark Jackson's the coach that they thought they hired. I mean, first year he did okay. Dealt with some injuries. They kind of changed the landscape of the roster. So we'll see what he can do in his first full season.
Real quick on the Jazz so we can move this thing along.
Absolutely. The Utah Jazz are a fun team because, I love Al Jefferson. I think he's the greatest basketball player that's ever lived. I might be a little crazy when I say that, but I really do like Al Jefferson. I can't help it.
When he gets the ball in the post,
I can't help it.
You can almost guarantee 2 points. If he's got good position in the post,
but they probably
he's got that many moves than he did even in his rookie year in Boston.
They might have the best front court in the league. If you look at talent-wise.
New York Knicks, I would probably argue, but...
Yeah, but they have... I mean, they are what they are, the Knicks front court. Amari is what he is, Tyson is what he is, and Camby is what he is. But look at this.
Don't forget about Carmelo Anthony at the small forward.
Well, if you want to now, I'm looking more at the power forward.
You're talking bigs. Okay.
We're talking big guys.
Sure.
And they have probably the 4 guys who should be starting somewhere. And Al Jefferson, Paul Millsap, Derek Favors, and Ian Escanto.
Well, if we're just talking bigs, then you would probably argue one of these, probably the Lakers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know what I mean. But
yeah, they have a lot of talent along their front line with Jefferson, Cantor, Millsap, Favors. That combination of 4, maybe I give you that they have the most depth at the power forward and center position of anyone.
Mm-hmm. But the key to them is, what the hell can Gordon Hayward do? Yeah. And if he's Gordon Hayward like he was last year, yeah, you might be tough in that position. We might be seeing Randy Foye get in there pretty soon. Yeah, I mean, you hope so. But, yeah, so with that, we're going to take a 2-second break, and we'll grab another beer, and we'll start this back up.
Okay. And we lied, because we're actually back right now. The beer was delivered to us by the fine folks here at Super Discount Liquors in Stoughton, Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah.
And, Jacob, why don't you tell them a little bit about the next beer that we're sampling here? This is the Beer and Rankings podcast, so we should talk a little bit about the beer that we're sampling.
Yeah, and this is a fantastic brewery. I've had the chance to have a few of the different kinds of brews that they've had over here at Rising Tide in Portland, Maine. We're staying in the Northeast for our brews. Maybe next week we'll get out to the West Coast, but for now, we're enjoying some East Coast brews.
Eastern Conference beers?
Yeah, Eastern Conference beers. I mean, it'd be a whole
This
thing.
From the Maine Red Claws.
Yeah, oh, exactly. This is a Weizen Stout. It's called Ursa Minor.
From the Rising Tide?
From the Rising Tide Brewery in Portland, Maine, and they have a fun story, which I was reading it with JJ earlier, and he's like, you got to read this on air. So we're going to read it on air because they're fantastic writers, and that's what we appreciate. So, dark as squid ink and moody as the sea, Ursa Minor is our take on a winter wheat beer. Starting with a German wheat beer yeast and a base of malt wheat, we added a blend of dark crystal and roasted malts to create this wheat stout, brimming with aromas of dark fruit, Weizen yeast esters, and roasted barley. I can't keep a straight face with you doing that. Ursa Minor is perfect for an icy winter's eve, and it's getting pretty cold up here. So
yeah, we're ready for some winter.
We're ready for winter, but
actually I'm not, but it's an inevitability here.
Well, we have one more bracket.
Yeah, let's move on here to this bracket,
and then we have matchup things, teams that we're putting together that aren't really. It gets confusing. And
should we call this next one the boring bracket?
You know what? You might have to, but I know a lot of NBA guys are going to be upset if we did.
Yeah,
but we're doing it anyways.
I don't know. That might be unfair. I consider the Bulls very boring this year, especially because you don't have Derrick Rose for most of it. And we have, just so you know, we have the Bulls here at 14. I believe we agreed on that one.
Yeah.
No Rose.
The Hawks at 15.
You didn't really make many exciting additions. Heinrich's back. But your core is Noah, Boozer, Dang, Hamilton.
Not a lot of offense, and I think that's what we get by boring. And we appreciate the defensive teams. We're based there in Boston. We appreciate efficiency on both ends of the court, but without Derrick Rose, we saw the lack of efficiency that the Chicago Bulls had. But not to jump ahead, but the Atlanta Hawks we have at 15. We have the Grizzlies at 13, and we have the Indiana Pacers at 12.
And the Hawks are the ones who I think don't deserve the boring moniker here. Because there was a lot of overturn there.
Yep.
Obviously, that's always exciting when you have a lot of new players.
Let's pick a new name, because it's clearly not boring.
And Josh Smith is super exciting. Al Horford's a great player. Lou Williams there excites me.
How about almost there, but not yet?
Could
be there?
Could be there, I like. They could be there.
They could be there.
And probably will be in the playoffs. Obviously, obviously, we have them in the top 14 teams that would qualify for the 16 teams who make the playoffs.
So they're playoff teams.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see either of these teams missing the playoffs, but the Hawks, I think that famous saying that everyone has, and it sounds so cliche and stupid, I almost don't want to say it, but addition by subtraction, if that makes any sense. I think they're going to be a more open offense. Obviously, the ISO Joe's gone, and everyone has their theories.
I think they'll be really up-tempo.
Yeah.
The personnel would indicate that.
Yeah, I mean, it rests on Jeff Teague. They need a lot out of him, but basically, Danny Ferry came in here and said, all right, Al Horford and Josh Smith, you are the two best players on this team. You guys are going to lead us, so they're going to go as far as those guys can go. And they got a lot of contract guys.
And they got a ton of guys who can run the floor, like Devin Harris is a guy who's quick with the ball. Lou Williams, we know, is super quick. And you've got shooters on this team ready to... And they'll probably be doing some of the the Lithuanians shooting threes in transition.
That's going to be
when you've got guys like Kyle Korver and Anthony Morrow on the wings, they're going to be bombing away.
They're going to be bombing. And so, to add another cliche here, we always hear that contract year phrase in sports, that when people are on contract years, that they tend to play better. So, the Hawks, I believe, only have 2 people on the contract going into next year. So, everyone's on a contract year, and we'll see what the Hawks can do.
So, certainly not boring.
Definitely not boring. So, it's going to be up-tempo.
Grizzlies, we know the storyline that I love. Can Rudy Gay and Zach Randolph coexist? Will one of them get hurt again?
It's definitely an interesting topic because they got rid of O.J. Mayo, so that basically says, Tony Allen, we trust in you. We don't need O.J. Mayo anymore. They have a lot of talent around. They picked up Jared Bayless. Rudy Gay's hopefully back for a whole season for them. They got Maurice Gates. They got Tony Wharton. A lot of talent all the way around, but still a lot of uncertainty outside of the starters. And the fact that they underachieved to me last year is disheartening because I really thought they would take that one more step and make it to the Western Conference Finals. And
yeah, when you were looking over that Vegas list of guys who you would put a little money down to make a lot of money if they were to somehow make it to the NBA Finals, the Grizzlies might have been like 6th on your list there going into last season with all the talent that they have.
I could say that.
But it just didn't come together, and that'll be what we watch for on that team. Obviously, they won't miss the playoffs, but can they compete with the teams that we have ranked above them? Probably not at this point in time.
They are a veteran team in the sense that a lot of players have a lot of experience in the league, and they're basically going with this roster saying this is what we're going to go with and we're going to win. And Rudy Gay needs to step out to be that first-tier All-Star, or they need to have a Detroit Pistons-style model where you got a lot of B guys. Mm-hmm. And the B guys can be Zach Randolph, Michael Conley can get up there. I know you're not a big fan of Michael Conley. We'll talk about that another day.
Yeah, he's on my fantasy team.
He is on your fantasy team, and you love it. You love it. And then obviously the Marcus Gasol. So the Grizzlies are an interesting team, but I'm putting them in the bracket to show me before I believe you again.
Yeah, show me before I commit to you again, basically.
I need this girl to show that she's into me before I'm into her.
Right, the Grizzlies haven't shown that willingness to give.
No. This beer is giving, by the way. This is fantastic.
Yeah, this is really delicious and
nice and smooth, nice stouty. If you like your Guinness-style beers, you're going to like this. Beers.
A lovely taste.
Lovely taste. Let's move up to the one team who, to me, they're an attractive team. I want to ask her out, see what she's up to. But
wow, comparing teams to girls thing is really taking life.
I don't know if she's the one for me, and that's the Indiana Pacers. They have all the pieces. They have all the talent.
Talk about having a bunch of guys who are B guys, but could possibly, if they work,
you hope one or two make an A.
If they work together correctly, this team could be very, very dangerous.
Another spoiler alert in my article. I'm just going to give it away because you guys are going to read it anyways. It's fantastic. But
TheProBasketballTalk.com, by the way.
For my Coach of the Year candidate that no one's talking about,
Mr.
Frank Vogel. He's got the talent, and if he makes his team become the second best team in the East, if they have a better record than the Celtics,
they've got that potential. Which is why we rank them at the top of this bracket.
Yep.
Because they've got that kind of potential. With a guy like Roy Hibbert who can dominate in the paint. David West has always been solid in his career. George Hill, who apparently is good enough that they feel confident enough to trade Darren Collison for nickels. You brought in Jan Mahimi. That's about it.
You know who intrigues me the most?
Who's that, Paul George?
Close. Gerald Green.
Okay.
Gerald Green has vastly improved in the NBA.
We've known him for quite a long time.
Oh, yes. And he actually had a fantastic quote the other day, and he said, if I was as smart as I am now in terms of basketball, so he's talking of his basketball IQ, if I'm as smart as I am now as I was in Boston, I'd still be playing in Boston.
Yeah, Doc Rivers would still want him.
And he would. I mean, he's a tremendous athlete, and he's finally getting it together. He's understanding what it is to play basketball. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting way to put it, but the Pacers they belong on the top of this list of
we got to talk about Roy
Hibbert that will be there, but probably won't be in that championship contention. But they may even deserve to be higher on the list than we have them ranked. Now let's move on to the two teams that we have isolated by themselves.
Yep, and it's the two teams that you and I had a disagreement on, and we'll hope their roster, so we're smart people when we talk about them.
And this is a conversation we've had before on the podcast, and one that anyone listening to this from the New York area obviously would be interested in.
We're doing that one. I thought you didn't want to skip that team. We'll do that next.
What team?
We'll do that next. Oh, they're up here.
Oh yeah, they're further up than these guys.
Okay, well if you look at my sheet, they're next.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
But no, it's okay. We'll do the Knicks because they're next on your sheet.
Sure.
Well, those two
Knicks
teams are.
and Nets. I have the Knicks at 10, the Nets at 11. You have a little reversies there.
Yeah, I have the Nets at 9 and the Knicks at 10. So I moved them both up, and I moved another team down, which we'll get to in a second.
I do think, despite them being the oldest team in the history of the NBA...
In the history!
Hey, so a lot of times, veteran experience turns into wins, and you look at this team and the backups that they have for everyone and their starting lineup, and I believe the best front line in the NBA with Carmelo Anthony, small forward, Amari Stoudemire, power forward, Tyson Chandler in the middle... I think that they're very strong. And the thing is, can Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire coexist? That's always been a question. And can Raymond Felton and Jason Kidd hold down that point guard slot that they've sort of had a revolving door in that position over the past 2-3 years?
To me, you look at the front court and it's fantastic. But it comes down to, will Carmelo play a front court style of game? And you hope so. I hope he takes it to the hole every single time because he can. And I hope they establish a pick and roll with Carmelo and Amari. I really hope they do because that would be fantastic basketball to watch. And let the guard just hang out on the perimeter and chuck away because I'm not sold on any of those guys, in either the shooting guards or point guards, to make plays offensively. Jason Kidd will always make passing plays, which is good, but he's going to give you 25 minutes, 30 minutes a game. Raymond Felton's going to be starting for you there, and he's got a lot to prove. So he's he's the X factor.
In the preseason, I've seen that a lot of times they've got Raymond Felton at the point, and they're starting Jason Kidd as the 2.
So, and that puts JR on the bench. And if you look at the shooting
I think
guards,
that's where he belongs, though, J.R. Smith, is that instant offense.
He can't be a starter because then he thinks he could do more than he actually can. But to me, there's too many question marks for the Nets. For the Knicks. They got a lot of talent that's veteran talent, so that gives them that winning mentality in the locker room. But to me, the Knicks keep saying the right things every year in the past couple of years.
And then it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But so that's
they should be in a prove it to me mode.
Yep.
And I think this is the year that they finally buckle down and do it, especially since they're now feeling a little pressure in their area where if they don't prove it, a lot of fans are going to be jumping ship and going to look at those Brooklyn Nets that you think are going to be better this year.
True. But I'll jump back. The Knicks fans are so delusional, and I hate to put you all in this category. I'm going to do it. But you're going to blame Mike Brown. I'm sorry, not Mike Brown.
The guy who looks like him.
He does. Mike Brown.
Woodson.
Mike Woodson. You're going to look at him and blame him for everything. Honestly, I just don't think you have the coaching style for that because we know what Mike Woodson does. He invented ISO Joe. So, but
will it be ISO Melo?
Will be ISO Melo. Melo loves isolations, and he's probably the best isolation player in the league. I'm not going to lie about that. Yeah. When the ball's in his hand, he makes plays happen.
When he gets in the triple threat, you're literally thinking he could do any one of those 3 things, and I'm not going to be able to stop any one of them.
Exactly, you can't. But the reason why I like the Brooklyn Nets is because I like their 2 stars over the 2 stars of the Knicks. Amari's had nothing but drama since Carmelo has showed up. Nothing but drama.
Speaking of ISO Joe.
Speaking of ISO Joe. ISO Joe's in this conversation. I think ISO Joe is finally with the point guard.
Where he doesn't need to be ISO
Joe.
He can be off-ball Joe, yeah.
Yeah, he could be off-ball Joe. This is fantastic. We're giving him new nicknames. He's going to love it. But I like the Nets, and it's funny because we discussed this last time. I hate Brook Lopez. So how can I like the Nets and hate Brook Lopez? Because Andre Blatch has been playing fantastic. Chris Humphries does the rebounding, so my whole gripe against Brook Lopez is rebounding. Don't worry about that. Chris Humphries got that for you, homie. That's what he's getting paid the big dollars for. So I like the construction of this roster. I think the Nets roster is constructed better for they have a plan. To me, and I brought this up the past couple of years, the Knicks kind of, let's get Amari because he's the best free agent we can sign right now. The only one that wanted to come here. Oh, Carmelo's available? Hold on, let's change gears real quick. Let's go get Carmelo. They didn't really plan it out.
Right.
And I feel like this roster is a better roster.
They didn't necessarily go for guys who they thought would work with their team. They just went for guys who would put asses in the seats and make Spike Lee happy.
Aspect.
Yeah. It is kind of a mentality.
Just get the best player at every position and you're going to win basketball games, right?
But I still think that, playing in the Olympics, I think, changed Carmelo Anthony.
Hopefully.
Being around all that talent. I think he works
second
better.
year playing with it, though.
I know, but I do think that this year he works better with the guys around him, especially with Jason Kidd's presence. I think changes a lot there, and I just think that veteran experience is what puts them over the Brooklyn Nets, especially since there's so much change around the Brooklyn Nets. There's just so many things that could go wrong, in my opinion. But I do love that Andre Blatche pickup, by the way, that you brought up. I think that was one of the most underrated pickups of the entire offseason.
I don't know
because I watched a lot of him when he was in Washington, and he showed the talent. He's just one of those guys. Is he mentally there?
Yeah. But here's one more question before we hop on. I know we're probably going to go over our hour mark here because we haven't even got to the top 10 teams. But having said that, sixth man. Who's the better sixth man out of Marshawn Brooks or J.R. Smith?
I would say JR.
You like JR? The reason why I like Marshawn because I think he's a more solid player. He's younger. He's he's still learning the NBA game.
Probably younger, but acts older.
Yeah, exactly.
J.R. Smith acts like he's still about 14 years old, but we've seen him come out and hit about 4. He's the type of sixth man who can actually come into a game and take over that game.
True.
There aren't many of those around the league. He's one of them.
And it's unfortunate because Marshawn would be a starter if there was no Joe Johnson. But
True.
Joe Johnson comes around, he makes $23 million more per year than you do in your first whole contract. So, sorry, the money talks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it because we kind of voiced our opinion in the last show, and we could probably talk Knicks and Nets every single day.
We could do a full Knicks-Nets pod probably, and I think we've expressed that opinion before. So now do you want to talk about the two teams we're really a little distant on?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you have the Denver Nuggets ranked 9.
Yep.
I have them ranked 6. You have the Dallas Mavericks ranked 6. And I have the Dallas Mavericks ranked 11. I actually have Dallas worse than the two New York teams. Obviously, the Dirk injury helped influence my decision on that. We talked a little bit about them last week and how optimistic I am about them. Because I think they do have a lot of talent. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of talent. They have a lot of veterans on that team.
I would say a lot of talent.
And they got the one guy.
That's why I ranked them at 6.
Yeah. And they got the one guy, O.J. Mayo, who has a lot to prove. I believe he signed a 1-year, $4 million deal. He's not making much money this year for them.
Yeah, he's got the potential to be a number one scorer, as you said before, on this roster.
Yeah, he has that.
His big thing is, can he improve his shooting percentage? He's struggled with that in the past. I think a starter's minutes and being around all the talent that he is around can improve that, not being the go-to guy on the court when he's out there with, say, a Dirk or Darren Collison or a big guy like Chris Kaman who can command things in the post.
Yep.
I really love this roster. I think you've got perfect bench players in Carter who can come out and give you instant offense, although he's probably not going to play any defense for you.
I'm not happy about
Elton Brand, which might be the reverse mentality there, who could back up either the power forward or the center position. They'll probably need him to be a starter, though, out of the gates with Dirk Nowitzki. I think he fills in well there, though.
It gives him a shot to prove that he's still got something in the tank. However, I don't think he does. He's a big guy. He's had a couple of injuries in the past.
I still like him this year.
He's never really turned into that player that
we talked to Mo in Barstool Philly, and he said, say what you want to say about Elton Brand. He came out every single night that he was a Sixer and gave it his all every night he could.
Yeah, but his all wasn't good enough. Or as Cartman says, well, I guess your best isn't good enough. To me, Elton Brand's injuries have plagued his athleticism over time. He's still going to fight hard because he comes from that mentality of the, the big three back in the day, the boys from California, Paul Pierce, Elton Brand, and Baron Davis. They were all buddies.
They were friends.
They planned to play together. They were trying to do what the big three did back in the day.
And Elton Brand and Baron Davis were supposed
to
play
together. Yeah, they were supposed to play together, and that didn't really work out. But I like him on the bench. I don't like Elton Brand as a starter.
I think that's where we differ most. I think Elton Brand surprises a lot of people this year.
I know you've been a big Elton Brand fan in your life.
Well,
and I love him too.
He's
from his
long
days.
enough to defend the power forward and the center positions.
Yep.
He's got a great jump shot. He works well in the offense, and he's a hard worker. He is, advanced in age, as they say, and he's had some injury problems. That's the negative side. I think if you look at his potential for this year, he can fill in great for Dirk Nowitzki while he's out, and then come back and be the consummate pro on the bench.
The X factor for this team, in my opinion, has to be the head coach, Rick Carlisle. because he's always had great success in wherever he's coached. He's always had talented rosters, and he's found a way to maximize that talent until they stop punching people in the stands. But that's what he's been able to do, is take his talent and, put him in the best position to succeed. But let me jump over to the team that I'm very excited for, and I've been high on the Nuggets for a couple of years now. I absolutely love the package they got for Carmelo Anthony. I think it was a fantastic package, and I felt like just over time they've added, and they might have one of the younger teams in the. If you take out Anthony Carter at 37 years old and Andre Miller at 36, everybody's basically under 25 years old. Plus the acquisition of Andre Iguodala, who I think is going to help change the defensive landscape. So if you look at who he's replacing, and that's Wilson Chandler, much better defender than Wilson Chandler.
Yeah, it's not like Wilson Chandler's not on the team anymore.
Yeah. You're right. I'm thinking of Aaron Afalo. He plays Aaron Afalo. So you add that. Then you got Wilson Chandler and the what's his Italian nickname?
Gallo?
Danilo Gallinari.
The Rooster?
Is it the Rooster? I thought he had a better nickname than that.
I know that he was once called the Rooster.
No, I believe he is called the Rooster.
Yeah.
And then obviously you got the high flyer Kenneth Frye, you got Javale McGee, and I see your point, because your point is probably the question marks on Javale and Kenneth Frye. We know they're athletic as hell, but can they play a solid basketball game on both ends of the court? If you're playing the Spurs with Tim Duncan down there, can they hang for 40 minutes?
I think mentality is why I ranked them down at 9 rather than up at 6 where you did.
Yep.
You got Andre Miller, who's a cerebral player. But other than that, you've got a lot of guys who struggle in that category. Gallo has been known to take ill-advised shots, as well as Iguodala. Anthony Randolph's never made it there, who they're really counting on to back up Kenneth Faried, who obviously is undersized for a power forward. But I still think this is probably the deepest team. There's just so many above-average players, just quality guys on the squad. But I think that there's a lot of mental things that could go wrong here. I think Andre Iguodala coming in and being named captain immediately is a bit of an oddball decision.
But
to
if
make.
you look at his age, he's older than all the other players.
But when you look at a team like Boston, when Kevin Garnett came to town, they didn't say, now you're the captain. Well, Paul Pierce, you've been here for a while. You still have that mark. I don't know who you pick out on this team to assume that. I would say probably Andre Miller, but again, he's not going to be playing as many minutes as Iguodala. This may be. I'm just saying, I think they're putting a lot of eggs in the Iguodala basket right now, making him the center of everything, and I think that it might not work out as well as they think it will. But on the other hand, there's tons of talent, and they could. I have them ranked at 9. That's not saying that they're a terrible team. You know what I'm saying?
No. I'm just I boosted them up to 6, and I have them above teams such as the Nets and Knicks. And then we'll hop into this next bracket, which we got to find a name for, which is the 76ers at number 8. I got the Clippers at 7, Celtics at 5, Spurs at 4. And what is the difference there for you? You got the Sixers at 8, Clippers at 7, Celtics 5, and Spurs 4. So we have the same there. So that's that next bracket, and I have the Nuggets stuck in between there. You got the Mavericks stuck in between there.
Yeah.
What do we call this bracket?
I think you look at the top 3 teams that we have on our list. Mm-hmm. Those are the great teams.
Yep.
So I think this bracket should probably be called the really good teams.
Really good teams.
Because they are just that.
And it's really going to depend on them to get over the hump. So let's start with the 76ers. And it's kind of interesting. They lose Andre Iguodala, but somehow we propel them up into the really good teams.
Well, when you bring in a guy who's arguably the best center in the entire league, depending on how you feel about Dwight Howard.
Peyton Wills would love to come on here and help us out with this Andrew Bynum segment.
Listen, he's not the only one who thinks that. I would still take Dwight Howard over him, 7 days a week and 1,000 times on Sunday.
But there are people.
But there are people who would put Bynum above it. It may just be his overall height, his length.
And we happened to go check out the 76ers play the other night.
We did, yeah. And Andrew Bynum didn't play, but...
and, I mean, you take out Iguodala, and what do he provide you? He provided you a wing defense. How do they...
But they've...
Patch it up. They've brought in
guys.
Yeah, they brought up offensive guys. This is what I'm getting at. Last year, they struggled offensively. They couldn't put the ball in the basket, and they couldn't get the ball inside. Now they added a premier center in Andrew Bynum, who's going to have that ability to score down low. Yeah, and then they added shooters.
It's weird, though. They did lose probably their 2 best scorers, Iguodala and Lou Williams. But Bynum can score in the post. I think Evan Turner they really needed to let loose
Yeah.
He was playing behind Iguodala, and of course you had Thaddeus Young there.
Did we mention this last podcast? But I guess there's some rumblings coming out that this team didn't care for Andre Iguodala's ego. They did not like his ego. They thought he was kind of a I'm better than everybody else mentality in that locker room. And I guess a lot of weight has been lifted with him gone, and now it's whose team is it? It's our team.
Yeah.
You know, they're looking around, and you got Bynum's too new to take it over. Evan Turner's too young to take it over. Drew Holiday's still got to make that tier of point guards. He needs to get into that discussion of is he as good as John Wall?
Yeah, probably for the positive for them, it's Doug Collins' team.
Oh, yeah.
And,
really?
And he's coached teams like this before who have the potential and are still fairly young. There's a lot of young guys on the roster who are going to have to play big roles. Swaggy P will
great
have
haircut,
will have
terrible
to learn
defense.
You look at that front line, those two bigs, Andrew Bynum with 7-foot Spencer Hawes at the power forward who can step out and make jumpers on the reg. They're looking pretty good, and that's why we have them ranked in this bracket. But yeah, I expect big things from the Sixers, but they might be the team that I pick out of this category as most likely to disappoint.
Correct. I don't have to agree. I mean, we know what the Celtics and Spurs are going to give us, and before we hop into those,
Yeah, do we even need to talk about the Celtics and Spurs? The Celtics and the Spurs do the same exact thing they do
every year. They're in the I would say
we have them ranked at 4 and 5. That's 100% where they belong and where they'll end up.
But I will say the Spurs sometimes disappoint in the playoffs, where the Celtics have overachieved in the playoffs. There's the difference.
Right, there's the difference.
One team sprints in the season, the other team sprints in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's the only flip-flop. But let's talk about this other team, and that is the Los Angeles Clips.
Well, when you have Chris Paul, you're automatically one of the top 7-8.
Unless you have Kyrie Irving.
Who apparently makes you better. In my opinion, if you have Chris Paul, you're automatically a playoff team. And if you have Blake Griffin, you're automatically, with those two guys, in the top 10 of teams.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Griffin is just a human specimen.
little inside joke there. We'll get to that maybe some other time.
Good times.
But I just think Chris Paul is the best point guard in the NBA.
Oh, absolutely. But to me, the Clippers improved their bench, and that's what they had to do. You have your starters. DeAndre Jordan is what he is, and hopefully he gets better year after year. You paid him like he's going to get better year after year, but we'll see what actually happens. But when you add guys that can, have Caron Butler, and you got
Lamar Odom was another addition.
Yep,
there.
They added him this year. Grant Hill this year, and not to forget the sixth-man potential in Jamal Crawford. That's a starting lineup in the NBA 2 years ago.
Yeah,
last year and this year.
Yeah, if you take Bledsoe, Crawford, Hill, Odom, and Turioff, that's like a bad starting lineup.
They could beat the Bobcats and the Magic.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They'd definitely beat the Bobcats. I think they'd probably beat most of the teams that we have there in that crap bracket.
Absolutely, they have to.
I think that there's. They've got probably one of the better benches.
The same thing that happens in every team that's in a big market. We talked about this with Mike Woodson. If they do not make the Western Conference Finals, which is going to be tough because, we don't need to give the spoiler away because we know who the three best teams are. Two of them have to be in the West. So they're most likely not making that Western Conference Finals, but if they don't, people are going to blame the head coach from Vinny Del Negro. He's already been on the hot seat. And
the problem with them is they're still the Clippers that are like the little brother of the Lakers, and it will remain that way as long as this season, as far as this season's concerned as well.
Especially since they picked up. We'll get to that.
The weakness here is in the center position, DeAndre Jordan. Yeah. What the hell are they going to do to stop Dwight Howard and Pau Gasol?
I would also say that the shooting guard. They don't really have a true shooting guard.
And who's going to guard Kobe Bryant? Yeah, the Lakers dominate them in every facet of the game. That's why they're not making it to that upper echelon, and we only have them at 7. I think it's because they're still that little brother.
Yeah, DeAndre Jordan needs to show something. He's terrible at free throws. He's terrible at offense, and really he just doesn't defend well enough to justify his contract or what he's doing. But he is a very young center.
He's got to take some steps.
He's 2'11". I'm 2'11". He's 6'11", 270.
Short center.
Short center, 2'11". But that's that. And as you know, the Celtics and Spurs are going to be fantastic basketball teams. And if you're a fan of those two teams, you're probably predicting that they're going to make it to the NBA Finals, as you should, because you should be a fan.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say we take one more quick break, grab some beers, and we'll finish off the top 3.
We'll sample our last and final beer for the top 3 teams, who I'm sure you all know who they are, but where do we rank them is the big question.
Big question.
Energy, we cross the hall. Gravity, we bounce the ball. Tenacity, I'll beat you all. So make your play, and I'll watch you fall.
And we're back, everybody.
Hey!
And the next beer we have is from Baltimore, Maryland, a little Heavy Seas brewery.
Peyton Wales.
Peyton Wales representing. And we got to congratulate him for hopping over to the No Look Pass and giving those guys a hand.
Another good blog. We've had Ray on a lot of the podcasts.
Absolutely.
Here.
The Laker faithful. And how convenient is it that we're having a beer from Baltimore? We're going to talk a little bit of Lakers Thunder.
And we just talked about Andrew Bynum and the Sixers.
And this is just Peyton Wales' dream.
Peyton's got to pop off.
Oh, man. We got to get him on this.
This would have been the only time. Yeah.
Okay,
so we got our top 3 teams left, and everybody knows who they are, of course. But the question is, where do we rank them? Yep. And I think you and I are pretty much in agreement on this. We had the Thunder at number 3.
Yeah. And the only reason I unseated the Western Conference champions is because I just can't discredit that Laker roster. It's just that scary.
Yeah.
And we look at their bench, and you can question that, but the Thunder are still young. And when you in the NBA, when you go young versus old always wins. How many? It took Jordan 6 years to win a title, 7 years in the league to win a title. It took LeBron 7, 8 years to win a title. You don't come in and you don't win titles right away. Dwayne Wade did it because he had a veteran roster with him. He had Shaquille O'Neal and all those old guys. I believe Alonzo Mourning was still playing at that moment. You don't come in young and win, and they're still like the 4th youngest team in the league.
The number one thing I want to say about between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Los Angeles Lakers is that is going to be the best freaking Western Conference Finals I have ever seen.
Ever.
It's going to be absolutely insane.
I mean, we love the Perkins on Dwight matchup.
And not only that, there's history.
Sergi
there's
and
history.
Powell.
There's history behind all this, behind the Lakers and the Thunder, behind Perkin, Dwight Howard there. Perkins has been known as the Dwight Killer in the past.
Yep, their battles
in the Eastern Conference Finals. You've got Kobe versus Durant. That's been something that's going on since Durant has emerged.
Even though they kind of haven't been gunning each other,
I felt like you would rank the Lakers ahead of them just because of they brought in Dwight Howard and Steve Nash. Come on. Yep. Multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year, multiple-time MVP, just added to your roster.
Well, you look at this. The 2 holes the Lakers have, or I should say had, was the point guard and the center position. Well, you can't even say center position, but Andrew Bynum was not there at all times. He was hurt. He was, doing his zen, whatever he was doing on the bench, just being Andrew Bynum, a character. Now they got a guy like Dwight Howard, who's arguably the best defensive player in the league. Your team has to change the way they play. Now this frees up Paul Gasol. He gets to play a little more away from the basket. He doesn't have to worry about rebounding as much. Ron Artest can basically just hang out and play defense.
And you want to talk about another one of those underrated signings in this offseason?
Jameson?
Yeah, no one's talking about Antoine Jameson just showing up on the Los Angeles Lakers. This guy has the best touch of any player in the post in the NBA.
Soft.
When he gets the ball in the post, he's got floaters from every single angle. He's got a bevy of moves he can use to get and not to mention he's a three-point shooter as well, which I'm sure he'll get plenty of opportunity to put those up on this roster.
Oh yeah, and you can't discredit Jordan Hill either. He's a fantastic young guy to have on your bench to come in, and he played well for the Lakers last year. So they're very happy with him. And on top of that, you got Steve Blake, who's going to know his role and shut his mouth. He's going to do what he does.
As The Rock would say.
But
good reference.
It's still going to be the starters, and that starting 5 is arguably the best in the league. Although we have them ranked at 2.
At the number 2.
But they are arguably the best. And the Thunder, to me, the Thunder can't improve by adding players. They have to improve by growing as players.
Right, and that's what they're lined up to do, really, is have this team come with it. That was the plan all along.
Yep.
Let's get a bunch of talented guys together that are still young. We'll have them grow up together, and they happen to have
but they missed
2 of the most talented guys in the NBA, in my opinion. Maybe
Russell.
3 about how you feel about James Harden.
I don't feel about James Harden.
Coming off the bench.
don't.
I also think people overrate him. He's disappeared in the playoffs.
Yeah,
more times than you can count on your hand.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
He's the reason they did not win the championship.
But you've got the defensive anchors of Kendrick Perkins and Serge Ibaka. Now you're talking about guys who could potentially stop the Los Angeles Lakers. I think the Thunder are one of the most underrated defensive teams in the league.
Absolutely.
Thabo Sefolosha has been seen to be a Kobe stopper in the past. Russell Westbrook's
I think
quick enough
the Nicholas Batum surgeons in the league has kind of forgot about Thabo Sefolosha. They kind of just push him to the side, but, people forget Thabo was doing it way before Nicholas. He was the Nicholas before Nicholas.
He was Nick Batum before Nick Batum was Nick Batum.
That's what I can say. But, however, the one thing they missed last year was bench scoring, and I guess they summed it up. We'll find out, and that is my boy, Perry Jones III. He's a 6'9" small forward who can put the ball in the basket. He's been playing great in the preseason. He's shown them the strides that they need. But, again, they're still all a young team. They still need to figure it out. And it's going to take a couple of losses to do it. They got their finals loss. They got their Western Conference finals loss. Maybe next year's the hump. Maybe the next year's they figure it out. LeBron did it. Kobe. Everyone does it. Everybody does it. Garnett never made it that far. You either do it when you're really old or it takes a lot of failure to get there.
Yeah, it's gonna be the best Western Conference Finals ever. Is all I'll say.
Arguably,
we've got Thunder at 3. We've got Lakers at 2. I think both of us would probably pick Lakers in a 7-game series here. But they will be playing each other. Whoa!
Actually, I might take the Thunder for the fact that if you do the superstar rating, who's the best superstar out of all the teams?
Kevin Durant.
Who's the second best superstar of all the teams?
Kobe Bryant.
You still got Kobe up there.
Over Russell Westbrook? Yeah.
I don't know. I was gonna put Dwight.
Oh. Yeah, I'd still probably pick Kobe and then Dwight.
So, you used to pick Kobe or Dwight?
Yeah.
All right. So then, who's your third?
I think he's more important to that team than Dwight Howard is.
Who's your third?
I would go Durant, Kobe, Dwight Howard, and then probably Russell Westbrook, and then Pau Gasol.
And then?
I don't know. Take or pick. James Harden, I guess.
Or Steve Nash.
Or Steve Nash, yeah.
So that's one method to do it.
That's going to be a weird matchup, though. Steve Nash and Russell Westbrook. I think they both have trouble with each other. I think Steve Nash has absolutely no chance of guarding Russell Westbrook, especially in the open court.
None.
No chance. It's going to be very important for the Lakers to help on defense. I think Metta World Peace plays a huge role there. You might actually see Nash on Thabo Sefolosha.
To me, with Perkins in the series, he makes Dwight probably the 4th best player in the series. Dwight's numbers drop dramatically, and you can go to the ProBasketballTalk.com, you can go to the search bar to the top right, and just look at, I think I called it Superman's Kryptonite, and I listed 3 players who have a history of stopping Dwight, or I shouldn't say stop, but slowing down the big machine. But I like the Thunder, and I like it because I think that the energy level that because it's going to be a pace. It's going to be a game of pace. The Thunder are going to want to run, fast pace, whereas the Lakers are going to want to have a half-court game.
Well, they'll do a mix, I think.
I mean, obviously, it doesn't work the way you want it the whole game, but the fight is going to be that the Lakers are going to want to slow the pace down, the Thunder are going to speed it up, and I love those matchups.
I honestly think that it could go either way. I think that the Lakers could even be like those old Showtimes on the fast break. You got a guy like Nash who can run it on the open court.
But can he run past...
But still, I understand the age factor, which is why you'd probably be hesitant to see that.
Especially in the playoffs, it tends to be a more half-court game.
But, yeah, I mean, we'll obviously see that during the regular season.
Oh, we will. Yeah. We're going to see. And I mean, it's a coin flip.
It's close. Yeah, I picked the Lakers. I'm not saying it's going to be not close. Oh, no. It's obviously going to be close. That's
close.
That's a 6 or 7 game series.
Yeah. Yo. Now, should we talk about the defending champs, a.k.a. our predictions?
Our prediction they ranked number 1 on our list. It's tough to dethrone the champ on a list like this, especially when they made additions.
the thing to me is the roster's still ugly. I still don't. I mean, I feel like you could do better if you traded Chris Bosh and got Dwight Howard or something along the, or traded. I'm sorry, Dwayne Wade and got Dwight Howard or something like that. I just feel like it's still ugly, but I can't deny the talent. It's incredible, and it starts with, obviously, LeBron James, and Dwayne Wade's been deteriorating year after year, obviously, with all the injuries. but the X factor's always been Chris Bosh. And
he
came back.
I think what you're saying is when you look at the starting lineup, it's not as eye-popping as when you look at the Los Angeles Lakers starting lineup. When you're looking at Mario Chalmers, but they have so many different lineups that they could trot out there. Basically, that's stemming from LeBron James being able to play all 5 positions on the court.
Going back to the half-court offense, or I should say half-court game, is what this team is probably going to have to do. Now, so my favorite lineup for them would probably be Dwayne Wade, Ray Allen, Rashard Lewis, LeBron, and Chris Bosh. But to me, in basketball, is a game of height. We heard Red Auerbach state that a long time ago. Basketball is a game of height. So when you're playing that lineup of LeBron at 6'9" at your power forward and Chris Bosh at 6'11", how much does he weigh? 240 at best. If you're playing a Lakers team with Dwight Howard, who guards Dwight?
Yeah.
Now, Dwight's not going to be killing you offensively, but he can absolutely play defense against Chris Bosh and LeBron James. And Paul Gasol next to him.
I think Dwight could dominate them
offensively. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Back Chris Bosh down into foul trouble.
Right. They'll probably have a mix on him. I would see Chris Bosh on him for a large portion of the time. Mm-hmm. But I think Joel Anthony and LeBron James sort of
that's where they switch
have a couple reps themselves.
Well, that's where the Miami Heat are going to have to make that decision. You have to do it for a Laker team. You're going to have to throw Joel Anthony out there, at least start the game on Dwight, get physical, and put Bosh on Pau Gasol, let them two be softies. They can soft out, and then let LeBron destroy Metta World Peace.
Yeah, well, Metta would claim that he would shut down LeBron. I don't think anyone can really do that.
I will say, though, I believe everything Metta World Peace says.
But I do believe that the Heat will repeat as world champions. I don't like to say it, but it's tough when you've got LeBron James on your team. You've already got a leg up on all the other competition. He is the de facto best player in the NBA. There's been questions about that over the past 2 or 3 years.
He's a guard and a power forward body.
I think he's proven all those things wrong.
I will say I saw a fantastic meme the other day. A meme had the 3 guys sitting on the stools when they were celebrating becoming a team. And the meme says, "We got to find some more haters. Our old haters are starting to like us now." And it's true. I mean, you come to respect them.
The both of us are warming up here. Obviously, the Heat. We have them as our number one on our ranking list. So yeah.
We're also realists. We're not just gonna fucking use that bomb. We're not gonna just blow smoke.
Eventually, when you hate someone for so long, and they just continue to produce, it starts to become a respect that you have for them. And it happened. We're Boston area guys, so sometimes we do get emotional about our Celtics. It happened with Kobe Bryant. Right now, Kobe Bryant's one of my favorite players in the league.
2 comments we have to say.
Because you appreciate what he does.
2 comments I have to say. 1, you've always been a fan of basketball first.
True.
Celtics were your home team. Second, you made a comment when we were at the game the other day. He says, we gotta come to these games and not get emotional. We did. We sat there. We watched. Spencer Hawes tore us up.
Yeah.
Good for Spencer Hawes. But I think we had that even way back in the day where, remember that Kyle Korver game where he had 20-something points and bombing threes away?
I believe that was his debut.
We give respect when respect is due. And going back to the last line, I think it would sum up your feelings of the Miami Heat. And I'm going to say this movie because I know it's one of your favorites, is Anchorman. When Vince Vaughn grabs Will Ferrell and says, "Ron Burgundy, I hate your guts. Man, do I respect you."
Right.
And he pulls him up off the ladder.
That's exactly what it is. You got to show respect to the champs. They did it. LeBron finally got their ring. Dwayne got his second.
The only thing I'm going to hate is if Ray Allen gets the second and he's going to claim that he's better than Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, because he's clearly not. He's not even better than Avery Bradley these days. I just want to get that out there because he's been grinding my gears. Yeah, Ray Allen, shut the fuck up. I got to say this.
Whoa.
Shut up, Ray Allen. You keep talking. Oh, I was disrespected. I wasn't giving the money. I wasn't giving this. You took less money for the same role in Miami. End the case. Say you did it for the ring, and I respect you. Say you did it for the ring. I have no problems with that. People do it all the time.
Yeah.
But don't sit here and say the Celtics didn't give you enough money. They gave you double the money. Don't say they diminished your role. Sorry.
Yeah,
the win-loss record was right when you left.
I think what made him so attractive to the Heat, in addition to his outside shooting, was his professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
These guys may be fairly young still, but they're all professionals. Say what you want to say about them.
Yeah.
I think the fact that he's been spouting off the way that he has it's got to be rubbing his teammates the wrong way. I wouldn't be surprised if LeBron James has pulled him aside
Said, "Shut
in the
up."
trading camps and said, Ray, really, we've awoken the beast on these other guys in the East before, and it hasn't turned out well. So
I will say that Jackie did a fantastic job on saving her previous article where she basically murdered Rajon Rondo because
that's Jackie McMullen, of course, who's speaking of.
Jackie McMullen of ESPN Boston. She wrote an article about 3-4 weeks ago about the Ray Allen situation going down there, what happened, and then she recently got to know the Celtics side of the story and listen to Rajon. Well, I should say listen to Rajon. Listen to what his teammates had to say.
Yeah, you don't talk to Rajon.
You don't talk to Rajon, that might be why she was biased in her article, because I read that, I was like, wow, she's basically just trashing Rondo, saying he's not a leader, not this, not that, and then she went to the Celtics and talked to Keon Doohan, Avery Bradley, Garnett, Pierce, Doc, and they all just said, Rajon Rondo's the guy. He was the guy organizing team dinners. He organized the camps out there on the West Coast. He is embracing that all-star.
Yeah, well, Rajon and Kevin Garnett have become the biggest bromance on the team, so it's no surprise that those guys have been running the show. Look at that. Good thing we skipped over the Celtics back then, because we just went on a whole damn rant about them.
Well, we're from Boston, and I'm very high on the Celtics team, and the thing I've learned over the past is you don't count this team out. In 2009, without Kevin Garnett, when they started, inspiring us, give Ray Allen his credit. We're back to Ray Allen, putting up 50 points against the Chicago Bulls in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That team had no expectations after that injury.
I believe you watched that in an emergency room, didn't you?
Was that an emergency room?
Or maybe it wasn't you. I'm sorry.
No.
I've
never been in an emergency room.
The people who I was with had to watch that game in an emergency room.
Oh, terrible.
Because my eye was split open that night.
Oh.
But that's the
so you couldn't even see what was going on?
No, I had no idea. But yeah, when you talk about the Lakers, oh wow, talk about the Lakers and the Thunder, that Western Conference Finals. There's a good chance in the East you'll see a repeat of last year's Eastern Conference Finals with the Heat and the Celtics, and I think that would be just about as competitive as it was last year, because I think the Celtics have also improved.
It's funny you said,
because
we had Just Kim Murata on the show, and she said that if you have Chris Bosh on the team, it's not a 7-game series. She might be right, but I go back to the other side. I play devil's advocate real quick, or I play Celtic fan real quick, whatever you want to call it. Where was Avery Bradley? If he was there to slow Dwayne Wade down or help out on LeBron James a little bit, it goes either way.
Whatever. Chris Wilcox, another guy they didn't have. Jeff Green was not out there at the time. You can make excuses either way. When it came down to it, Chris Bosh made huge shots in that last game that he played in.
He's a three-point shooter apparently now.
Yeah, and that was the difference in that game. And the Heat were the better team, and they came out on top. There's really no debating it.
No.
I think this year a repeat will be an excellent series, like we said about the other Western Conference Finals. It's going to be a great year, and that's why we take the time to rank all 30 teams, because it's going to be a great NBA season, and it's approaching rapidly.
It is. It's closer than we think, right? Is that the phrase?
Well, now it's just straight up close.
Next week, right?
What's that?
30th, right? 30th is the first game?
Exactly. I thought you were talking about next week's podcast for us.
Oh, well, next week's podcast.
Hopefully we have the return of Brian Kitzeller to the pod.
Yeah, we'll make sure we have a Thursday. I don't think there's any concerts either of us are going to.
No, next week we should be
good.
So
we can probably get Brian on. We might have to record it ourselves. I'll find a way to do that and then upload it, because he might have to be a little early. So
that's fine. Yeah,
it is what it is, as the famous saying up in New England that happens. So that will do it for us here at NBA Unplugged.
Yeah, thanks everybody for listening. If you disagree with us, of course, you can always tweet us at I'm James_Buckland, and he's Pro Basketball Talk. Take out the vowels in basketball.
or
Jacob N. Noble.
Yeah, Jacob N. Noble is probably the easier one, and then I have the Basketball Talk one there. Eventually I'll get that to be a drone Twitter account where I don't have to worry about doing anything. It's just going to tweet the articles as they post, and just lame stuff Twitter account. But that should do it for us here.
Yep,
and we'll put up all the beers that we had tonight. I'll give you information where to go to get them.
Yeah, this was beers and teams here.
Beers and teams. And we're beer fans, so not Chicago beer fans. Liquid beer fans.
Yeah, get that A out there. Stick it in. So thanks everybody for listening. I'm James Buckland. He's Jacob Noble.
You just listened to NBA Unplugged. Brought to you by TheProBasketballTalk.com.